And we are live. Today it's going to be a different stream for you all. Welcome to URC. This is a little early season announcement video. Recently, we did lose our head steward, C. Faulkner 07. He resigned from his post in URC. So stewarding has been overhauled between rounds 2 and 3, and it was a perfect time to do it with plenty of heat around the world, weather warnings all over Europe, and I will be joined by Shamrock for today's coverage discussing our new regulations.
Hello everyone, hopefully everyone is keeping well in these weather conditions. They are supposed to end at some points of Europe to tomorrow, so hopefully that will be the end of it. But yeah, it has been a couple of very warm days here, both in Ireland and of course the UK as well, and other parts of Europe. But yes, as Leo was saying, a lot of changes have come in the last couple of days. Obviously, we did lose C. Faulkner. We won't go into the details really of as to why we lost him, but there was a lot of changes that needed to be made, not only from a stewarding perspective, but also from a league management sort of perspective. I think we had to try and allocate roles and kind of spread out the management of the Discord rather than just having it to one individual person, because that would be unfair. But yeah, these changes are exciting, and I can't wait to see how they play out for the rest of the season.
Yeah, so let's talk the managerial changes quickly before we move on to our extensive coverage of the new URC Rulebook. To start with, we've now got the URC governing body, rather than it being a single man at the top. 5 people involved in the general day-to-day running of the league. That'll be both myself and Shamrock, as typically it has been. And we're joined by Rian C11, Fran Bernoulli, and Bluefoot doing various duties around URC to really drive home some work and hopefully a great community experience for you all. Sham will just be overseeing everything. Rian, he'll be looking over the drivers. I'll be keeping an eye on stewarding and, as always, running the commentary box for you all. Fran Bernoulli is mainly here as a consultant to make sure that us other 3 don't mess up. And Bluefoot, as always, our favourite graphic design and media personnel. And along with this, on the reform of stewarding, we've got 4 stewards remaining from our previous reign, with Faulkner, Ben, Anthony, Rian, Spencer, and Daniel will all be managing URC's stewarding decisions alongside myself and the rest of the ownership team. But with stewarding, massive changes have come into place, especially in terms of the rules. Now, Sham, would you like to explain a little why we've had to change these rules?
I think there's a lot of reasons. I think one reason is, and I'm not going to go naming, but there was a reoccurring driver last season that has been able to sort of find loopholes, sorts of errors, and a lack of clarity, I suppose, that has been found to be within the URC's previous rule book, and the last one apparently allowed a lot of incidents to occur where you'd get away with them for let's say putting someone in a wall or forcing someone off track or doing things under a safety car that you shouldn't be doing. The last rule book was unfortunately able to be manipulated to allow these things to occur without you getting a penalty or penalty points or simply not being investigated. So the rule book unfortunately had a lot of things missing, and this new one, I think, pretty much kind of gives the clarity and clears up any confusion that was evident in the last one, in my opinion.
Yeah, with that lack of enforcement as well, we had the penalty points existed. There was a system for what should happen should penalty points be administered, and it hadn't been enforced that entire time. That'll change. As a brief prefix to all of this, we did have the announcement earlier on today giving a baseline regarding what the new rules are. and penalty points are being reset for round 3 with the new system, rather than trying to count back and reevaluate incidents, especially since we no longer have access to the evidence from prior incidents. No one will have penalty points. It'll be a clean slate into round 3 for everyone, but they will be heavily enforced from here on out, and I wrote the rules. I can tell you they are not lenient whatsoever. But that's a great segue. So let's start moving in to the new rulebook, which was designed to be a lot more extensive than our previous rulebook. 7 sections to be covered. Section 1 regards just what the stewards will be doing. Section 2 is your reporting procedures. Section 3 covers everything regarding penalties. Section 4 is your general racing regulations. Section 5 covers everything to do with safety cars, and Section 6 covers on-track battles. Section 7, that just covers pretty much anything else that is unsportsmanlike, whether it's your personal conduct on track, in Discord, or even external from URC, because we're having to be a little more stringent about how that is being performed. So prefix to all the rules, pretty much, we will change this rulebook as the season goes on. There are going to be loopholes found. We've only had a few eyes on the rulebook as it is. So during the season, if issues are found with the rulebook, we are more than certainly going to be taking further looks at the rules. And generally, if anything isn't stated in this rulebook, it is expected that the real-life procedure would be taken in terms of an investigation into an incident. So Section 1 of our rulebook will cover stewards, as it was. We appoint stewards if we're happy to see that a driver is clean and they have good knowledge of regulations. And their responsibilities are review, evidencing, and giving their opinion alongside the regulation that was violated on any incident that was given. URC administration also reserves the right to ask for a review of an incident regardless of reports being created. Just because it's said on the commentary, though, it doesn't mean it will be reviewed. Any stewards that get involved within an incident will have the head steward and URC administration review their incidents rather than the regular stewards, just to uphold more fairness in how stewarding is performed, rather than having, let's say, Daniel and Ben are good friends and Ben's involved in an incident and Daniel ends up reviewing that incident and gives nothing where something was meant to be given. As the second part, though, this is how we want you to report incidents from now on in URC. The old system, it's very similar to how that occurred, but some minor changes have been made just for fairness' sake and for more easily being able to handle these incidents. So,
you want me to read this partly, or do you want to read this?
Go ahead, Shan.
So, obviously, thank you as well for explaining Section 1. Very well read, Leo. Very well read and pronounced. So yeah, Section 2, reporting incidents. This is one of the most easiest and straightforward methods. It's how you get your incident verdicts dealt, and if you're involved in something, this is how we're going to see you. So when within URC, you are expected to report your incident formally after any session, should they wish an investigation occurs to it. So the official final time has been changed and it may be considered for review, but as of now it is 11:59 p.m. in the current British time zone. The day
Shamrock was moved. Beautiful.
getting a report.
Sham, you were moved.
Who's moving
The
me?
day following the race was where you were up to.
I think someone. I think
I think Shamrock is being moved, and I'm going to figure out who is doing that. Because we are live. Fran, please.
Someone's moving me out of the VC.
Don't worry, I have handled it. You shouldn't be able to move you anymore.
Who was
hopefully.
it?
Fran Manuli.
Yeah.
As
Shock.
you might expect.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah. Alright, please continue.
So where was I? For these reports to be accepted, evidence must be present in the ticket as declared below. So the driver must provide the following: a brief narrative of the incident. So let's say if they were taken off track or put in a wall, they have to provide a full story of what happened to you during a race, because we're not here all night. We just want a brief summary of what occurred to you and why you're reporting it. Footage of the incident, I cannot stress this enough, is so important, and it needs to be footage that we can see. You can see Leo's highlighted here, 5 of times in URC I've been sent footage, can't make out is either clockwise or upside or is terribly on a phone. Footage is not deemed appropriate footage unless we have a clear view of it. Once these elements above have been submitted, drivers are to no longer interact. That means you don't say another word. Once you provided your story and your footage, say nothing more. This will then prevent arguments happening between you and maybe another driver that's been brought into the ticket. And it allows stewards as well to more effectively complete their duties. If more conversation occurs in a ticket, it makes the stewards' jobs more difficult because they have to go in between bunches of text and the footage itself. Whilst interacting with any steward in an official capacity, members are expected to always remain respectful and calm. We understand that after a race, you can be, depending on how your race went, you can be annoyed, you can be frustrated, you can be very much what we call in the heat of the moment. But we ask you to try your best to remain respectful and calm, provide anything requested of them, or inform the steward of their lack of the evidence requested, and maintain a level of understanding that the stewards are working on all incidents and may not be quick to respond. So that's pretty much it from the initial report. So that's kind of like the main first things to look out for. And then obviously once all of that has been completed, then you get to the likes of time penalty appeals. Now, time penalties appeals have been a massive thing in the F1 game, because the controversial part with them is that you are essentially appealing a penalty given by the in-game stewards. So some drivers may request that a time penalty they are given is revoked due to the warning being given in what they seem to believe is an unfair manner. Now, this could be a immediate 10-second penalty. This could be a likes of a cutting a corner to avoid an incident and be given a 10-second penalty. Time penalties like this always will have the right to be appealed following they have the following. They should first obviously create an incident report as normal within the same time frame as an incident and must provide the following evidence. So they have to provide a brief narrative of where this penalty was applied. So what sector, what corner, what lap, etc. Just anything that can help us stewards tackle this incident effectively as possible. The full lap of footage would be great to have, including the warning system messages to prove the warning was given. Note, this is really important as well. The length of footage is granted as an exception to Regulation 2.5 in this circumstance due to the requirements imposed on this appeal, including a full race director. Stewards, commentators, and league administrators are not held responsible for sending in race director footage or capturing it in any way. So this was something that occurred in the first 2 races of the season, and we now are making this clear to every driver racing. Stewards, commentators, and league administrators are not held responsible for sending in race director footage or capturing it in any way. If you forget to get your race director, which is your responsibility regardless of others having it, your appeal will not be accepted. If a time penalty then is served during the course of this race, be it a 10-second penalty, usually the case, it may not be appealed or credited to an individual. However, if a third party caused the penalty, i.e. another driver, by violation of regulation, they may be given the same penalty as punishment. Footage requests.
Sorry, Shan.
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
Us having maybe a copy of the race director. The reason that we want your race director specifically is it highlights your incidents rather than us having to go through slowly someone else's race director and pick out parts of yours. This time penalty appeals does also apply to appealing warnings as normal. So if you get a warning, let's say it's your 6th warning, which gives you your 6 seconds, and it's given unfairly, you should follow this same procedure in terms of that appeal.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's great. Moving on to footage requests. Again, this is a big thing that a lot of drivers, unfortunately, seem to struggle with in terms of getting their footage in on time. And we understand, obviously, people have other responsibilities outside of league racing. We know that league racing is the lowest priority compared to your actual real life, where everything things outside the league do, of course, matter. But footage requests are so important. Without footage, we can't do our verdicts. We can't do our jobs for giving a verdict on your incident. If you just come in here and say someone's taking you out and don't supply the footage, we're not going to go to the stream and chase that for you. If we request footage of you, we expect that it is going to be sent to us. So we will request footage from those involved if it's absolutely deemed necessary, and most occasions it is. Drivers that footage is requested from will be added to the ticket containing the initial complaint and will be requested to send in the footage. The driver should send in footage with the same requirements outlined in Regulation 2.5 and a brief narrative of their perspective in the incident. Once this has been sent, unless requested by stewards in further discussion, they should no longer message in the tickets again. This is to avoid pointless conversations occurring between the complacent driver and the driver we have dragged in that has provided their footage. There should be no conversation happening between these two drivers because it's just going to end up in a lengthy paragraph of text that we have to get rid of. Appeals process. This is one of the most basic rights a driver has in URC. With when the incident outcome is posted, as soon as that is posted, the appeals window opens and they may wish to appeal these incident outcomes that have been revealed. So incidents may be appealed within 24 hours after the verdicts have been sent in the outcomes channel. Drivers who did not submit footage upon request for an incident are ineligible to appeal the outcome regardless of new evidence being provided. The following requirements are imposed on those requesting an appeal of their penalty. New angles. Now this is really important. If you are appealing an incident that has already gone against you, you cannot show the same angle because we're going to give you the exact same verdict. It's not going to change. So new angles or new footage that prove an incident was incorrectly judged by a way of third person or third party footage is acceptable here, but it has to be a new angle or a new piece of footage. It cannot be the same angle or the same footage because we're just going to give you the exact same verdict. It's not going to change. It'll be a waste of an appeal. Proving then by discussion with the head steward that an incident was incorrectly judged. Appeals will only be handled by the head steward and drivers are only allowed to appeal the outcome once before the result is finalised. Discussions regarding irregularities within the regulations may lead to a changing of the regulations and penalties that were invalid for the event would be removed. So as you can see, 2.5 acceptable footage has been referred to in the previous subsections. So getting to it now, when sending in footage, you are expected to send the footage in one of the following manners. Footage that breaks these requirements will not be accepted, and some flexibility may be allowed if footage is usable outside the requirements here. So we've had all these different formats below in previous URC seasons, but it still has been difficult for people to follow. So this is what is in place. Xbox or PlayStation app clip. If you are an Xbox user, your clip should be no longer than 30 seconds or the length of the complaint containing the incident itself. To be with, obviously, if you're an Xbox user, link your account and make your footage through there. Same exact with the PlayStation app. You can either download the clip through your phone and post it then into Discord, into your required ticket channel. Again, no longer than 30 seconds or the length of complaint containing the incident itself. Twitch or YouTube live stream highlight. From a personal perspective, this is my most recommended place to do your incidents. I know I've had some incidents or occasions before where drivers have said, but Sham, I don't stream. I don't do YouTube. Even then, I still recommend this because it's so easy to get Twitch or YouTube live stream clips. It's the easiest to do, and it's very much straightforward because you can just send the link of your clip into your incident. Discord file uploaded clips. I haven't used this myself personally. I haven't used it, so I don't know how it works. But it should be of reasonable quality as to be discernible by stewards. Apps like SteelSeries GG, which compresses the videos, are disallowed by URC stewards for this method as video quality suffers. So if you have SteelSeries GG on your PC or whatever, it's not going to be accepted. Stable recording.
So with SteelSeries, you can upload it to YouTube from there and then send the YouTube link. But SteelSeries has the option, as I know do some other video recording or clipping softwares, have the option to send it into Discord. If you don't have Nitro, it will make the video 10 megabytes to be able to send it in Discord, but the footage is unwatchable. I've tried it before, you just don't know what's going on.
Yeah, so that's not going to be able to be used for us, and then we can't give a verdict, so it's not going to be accepted. Evidence will not be then accepted in the following formats. Now, this has been a continuous form of footage. Handheld recording of a screen. So this is like, say, if you are racing on a console or a PC or whatever, and you've recorded your incident on your phone by going into the race replay and then recording it with your phone, your handheld device. This is deemed to be too unstable and has typically resulted in unusable footage. Vertical recordings are the exact same, lose most of either width or usability when sent in, are therefore not allowed. And then obviously heavily compressed or low resolution videos. These methods are unusable as we lose all manner of quality to making the video easier to download. This footage method causes more hassle than not and therefore will not be accepted. So to those drivers who are currently using handheld recording of screens or vertical recordings, you need to change how you get your footage because they will no longer be deemed acceptable from the URC stewards. Footage violations. Again, the amount of times in URC footage violations have caught out drivers in getting hefty penalties, hefty warnings. It's such an easy violation, and you'll probably agree with me, Leo, it's such an easy penalty to avoid. It's so easy to avoid, but it's been constant. I've seen it, I've written it out in so many reports that drivers have received continuous footage violations because they just don't get the footage. So, and this is a message to all drivers watching this or all drivers in the Discord, and you'll see this in the Racing Regulations channel as well if you miss this live stream. All drivers competing within URC events are required without question to provide footage at request and maintain a full recording of their race up to 72 hours after the race has reached its conclusion. Failure to have this footage upon request will result in the following punitive actions against the individual. So again, and these are very non-lenient. They're very strict actually, these penalties, because there was a time when I had footage violations as first offence was a warning. It's not the case this time. First offence is now a 3-place grid penalty. Your second offence is a 5-place grid penalty. Third offence is 10-place grid penalty, with further offences granting qualifying bans. So these are very strict penalties for such a simple task. Get your footage, get it in without question, and you can avoid these violations. It's very simple. Leo, we get to now general penalties and penalty point systems, if you'd like to take it away with section 3.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm just keeping up with chat as well here, making sure that questions are answered. Shamrock, if you on your Shamrock account want to answer anything that comes up during this section.
Yeah.
So, first things first, just penalties and how we're going to apply them. So, we carry a variety of typical penalties that will apply in circumstances. There are exceptions here, which are discussed later on in the document. Penalties may be handed out for misconduct on or off the racetrack in the URC Discord, or even externally, which is covered in section 7. Anything happening in Discord or anything raised to the URC admin team may be given a penalty, as well as any violations on track being handled by stewards. Now, to make things a little bit easier for people as well to understand why they've been given X penalty, we define our instance in 4 categories that meet different requirements for how we're going to apply the rules. Leniency can be applied based on extenuating circumstances, such as the type of track. Let's say we're on Monaco, and there's some let's say there's a decently sized contact that caused major damage, but it's the case that it's Monaco, it's a tight track, and it's very hard to go wheel to wheel through the section. We might be a bit more lenient in that scenario. Track conditions, such as when it's wet, and sometimes we're just lenient because it's a good battle, and we want to encourage that in the league, rather than saying, oh, you've had a massive scrap, but one of you's ended up DNFing in the wall. Yeah, you still have to get the penalty for a DNF. We'll judge an incident based on all the factors judged in each section, and it may go to a higher level. It may not definitely will be a higher level based on only one condition in the list, but not always. So the 4 levels we have for penalised instance are minor, moderate, major, and extreme. Minor instance are ones where it's just a little bit of wheel banging, a little bit of non-damaging contact. You've tried to avoid the incident. The victim doesn't lose more than one position, and no time penalties were applied for the incident. So let's say you force a driver off the track, not much has happened, and you've gained the position from it. We'll classify that as a minor incident. With a moderate incident, that's where some damage is occurred. Some effort was attempted to avoid the incident, but it wasn't an incredible effort that did nearly make the incident avoided. The victim can't lose more than 3 positions for it, and a warning or time penalty was given because of this incident. Again, you could see this as a bit heavier wheel banging that forces a driver off the track. Maybe a driver spins because of it, and maybe they get a warning from it. That's where moderate comes in. Major incidents are incidents that gives you big damage, and that can be up to and including retirement. The incident doesn't have to look intentionally caused for this, but there's not much effort to avoid the incident. The victim can't lose too many positions, defined as 5 in the regulation, and some penalty in-game was awarded, whether it was for the offender or the victim. A penalty was applied. And an extreme incident is for anything in terms of intentional, that looks intentional, and typically it's for more than one person getting damage, such as a pile-up that was caused by an earlier incident, or the game awarded multiple penalties for the incident. We also have your typical racing incident where nothing really happened from the contact. No one was affected by it in any sort of way. So we just say, we're not going to hand out a penalty, just be a bit more careful the next time you go about your business like that. And the stewards will use this guideline as well now for how to apply those penalties. And penalties are applied for finishers and non-finishers equally. So there is flexibility in this regulation explicitly for this. So your typical time penalties for finishers are anything from 0 to 5 seconds and a penalty point. For minor incidents, moderate incidents have another 5 seconds that could be applied plus another penalty point. Major incidents, 10 to 20 seconds of time penalties, and you get 3 penalty points. And extreme incidents, which again are classified more as intentional collisions, would grant the driver a 30-second time penalty and 5 penalty points. But when people don't finish the race, it's not fair that they get given the time penalty, because in reality, it's not ended up affecting their result. Even if you finish though 2 laps down, you get your time penalty no matter what. It's for those that have DNF from the race, where you receive a grid penalty instead. Your equivalencies for minor incidents are 3 places, moderate incidents are 6 places, major incidents give a 10-place penalty, and extreme incidents give you your qualifying ban. But Regulation 3.4, as I was saying, with extreme incidents, we may hand out larger penalties based on how bad the incident looks. So the penalties that we might give include race bans, bans for the entire season, a removal from seat, or a removal entirely from the league. Now, race bans and removal from seat, or season ban and removal from seat, will typically go hand in hand, where a removal from the league is for the most extreme of extreme cases, i.e. someone has gone around the track, smashed 5 people off at different times, all intentional wrecks, and we want cleaner driving to be present in URC, rather than letting them maybe have a second chance because they've just had a qualifying ban or 30-second time penalty. Unfortunately, for those who get an extreme incident as their first penalty points, we do have a penalty point system coming into place that will be enforced from here on out. The season, every season, your points will reset regardless of when they're obtained. So even if you obtain your, let's say, 15 penalty points for a season ban, in the final race of the season, you will have a reset on your penalty points. Any penalties that come along with it will still carry over to your next season in URC. So for 5 penalty points, for those who get an extreme incident in DNF, you get another qualifying ban on top of it. For 8 penalty points, you are banned for 1 race. For 12 penalty points, we'll ban you for 2 races, and then you'll be removed from your seat immediately, and that'll be given to another willing reserve to drive. You'll still have the opportunities to reserve after you've served your race bans, but we will not allow you to race before then, and because you're missing so much of the season with the amount of race bans you will have had already, you're not very useful to your constructor at that point. And 15 penalty points will just result in you being banned for the rest of the season. If you get 15 penalty points in a season, it means you've had at least a few moderate or major incidents, as well as a bunch of minor incidents. There can be a little bit of leniency in that. Let's say you've somehow had a race with 4 minor incidents that were really nothing burgers. We might consider that for race bans, but generally speaking, 15 penalty points is not allowed, and it'll be a season ban. But in terms of that, that's just clarifying how we're applying penalties, and rather than saying, where we've got our instant definitions from 3.2 to 3.2.5, rather than just having that and then having typical penalties below each instant, that'll be the guideline for every instant unless otherwise stated in these regulations. And moving on to regulations, Shamrock, would you like to take on the first 4 of this, because this is quite a long section?
Yes, of course. I'll be happy to. So, moving on to general racing regulations, obviously this is what the drivers deal with on track. So it is important for any seasoned driver that we've had in the league, or of course, any new driver that comes in, because if you are a new driver and you've come from another league, the racing rules and regulations might be different from that league compared to URC. So it's important, if you are a new driver, you know exactly what we're dealing with when we come to dealing with your incidents, or at least you're aware of how your racing regulations are on track. So 4.1, subsection 4.1, track limits. The edge of the racing surface is defined by the solid white line running around the edge of the track or the barriers on street circuits where there is no off-track space. Drivers are expected to maintain at all times 2 wheels within the track limit. Anything more than 2 wheels within the track limit is considered to be a penalty offence. Where the game defines the track limit is where we classify track limits to be held. In the case that the game has a bug allowing track limits to be exceeded, individuals will be notified before the event and required to maintain themselves within said track limit or risk a penalty being applied. Now, previous tracks having these issues, I can name one straight off the bat. Canada is one to be a track limit nightmare. And a lot of 3-second pens are...
That's the bottom part of this. This is where the track limits aren't being considered by the game. Which
I just thought it was the first one that came to mind.
No, Canada is part 3 of this 4.1.
So we will get there then, I suppose, eventually with that. But rejoining the racing surface. So in the words of Jimmy Broadbent, you must resafe jointly whenever you must resafe jointly.
You are reading that correctly.
I am reading that correctly. You must resafe jointly whenever you leave the racing surface. Safe rejoins are defined as those that do not impede drivers who have maintained themselves on the racing surface and does not cause an incident. In cases where a driver is forced off circuit and forced to join or rejoin alongside another driver, the driver who causes the off-track excursion is at fault for any incidents that occur, provided the victim does not behave erratically when attempting to rejoin the racing surface. So, let's just say Quiet Boy is having an absolute stink of a race. Don't ask me why I've used him as an example. But if he's gone wide in Spa and he decides to rejoin the track, Fran is on a flying lap in this race, going for the fastest lap, and Quiet Boy has rejoined not seeing Fran. If a collision occurs between those two drivers, the blame is going to be on Quiet Boy for not rejoining safely. Pending, obviously, investigation, most of that blame is going to be going towards Quiet Boy at that moment in time. So this obviously may be judged case by case from the stewards and is open to some flexibility. 4.3, pit lane entry and exits. 2 very important sections of the track, the pit lane entry and the exit. The pit lane entry lines are expected to be followed at all times while racing in URC. The pit lane entry commit line, defined in real life as safety car line 1, is when a driver must be all the way committed to the pit line and they must follow this into the pit lane. Drivers who are not pitting are expected to maintain at least 2 wheels to the racing side of the pit entry line at safety car line 1 in all sessions. A 5-second time penalty is applicable for failure to follow this regulation per offence. The pit entry is classified as part of the racing surface, and drivers must be predictable in their actions. The pit lane exit lines also must be followed to the point the game defines them. I mean, literally in the game, Mark, your engineer, tells you do not cross the pit lane exit or you will receive a 5-second time penalty. The game literally gives it to you. So don't do it. In cases where the game is bugged and does not report the crossing of the pit lane exit lines, you are still responsible for any violations of this ruling. So you cannot take advantage of a bug to benefit you. We'll still find out. The pit exit is classified as part of the racing surface and drivers must be predictable in their actions. So yellow flags. Yeah, go ahead.
A little image that I've just dumped on the screen. Very professionally made, I can tell you that. Safety car line 1 is typically your initial pit entry line, as displayed on the screen in Austria. That's about where it would be. To that point, you're expected to be all wheels to the right hand side of the pit entry line if you are coming into the pit lane to make a stop. And again, on the pit exit, you're expected to be to the right hand side of the white line with all 4 wheels and rejoin the racing surface as in 4.2 safely, especially on tracks where the pit exit just rejoins onto the racing line and there's a big speed differential.
Yeah. And especially in Austria, it's one of those, just an ongoing bit off track here, but specifically in Spielberg, if you're going too fast into that pit lane and there's a car alongside on your left, you're obviously going to have, and if you go over that pit lane entry, there's going to be a collision. So I suppose there's going to have to be some, a case by case verdict on that, isn't there, Leo, in terms of that pit lane?
It'll be discussed as and when it comes up, but typically you should be committed to the pit lane at safety car line 1, which is where in real life it is defined that you have to commit to the pit lane.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to yellow flags, a thing that we see in URC a lot, no joke. We literally see it because of Rando either going slowly in qualifying for no reason, or someone in the race just going slowly due to losing their wing or whatever. At all times during the course of a URC race, yellow flag rules are to be adhered to as in real life. During any yellow flag situation, and this is like a Max Verstappen example, you must slow down in preparation to avoid an incident that may be up ahead. Don't go full throttle in a yellow flag because you will cause a crash. 90% of the time you'll cause a crash. The 10% you might dodge it, but you're not Leo. You're not going to dodge an incident. So you gotta just be prepared. Slow down. Any incidents caused by drivers ignoring yellow flags will result in a minimum of a 10-second time penalty. Yellow flags are displayed to notify drivers of a dangerous situation ahead, and failure to follow this ruling may result in penalties outside of incidents. Take this example in Monaco. If you have Yari going through the pool section and he spins the car, which is common to do from Yari, and he bins it in the wall, and then you have Bluefoot, aka the Silent Bull, coming through the pool section and the yellow flags are being displayed and he decides to ignore them, Yari's crashed car, missing its wheel, is still sitting there. Bluefoot's going to either crash into Yari, causing an even more severe incident, and that's going to becoming down to Blue receiving a 10-second time penalty because he didn't slow down. So there's your good example there. Blue flags. This is again obviously for drivers who have been lapped, or if P1 is catching P22. The blue flags basically mean you have to get out of the way. So if you're being lapped by the leaders, you must make a concerted effort to cede the position within four corners of first receiving the blue flag. In ceding position, they must not cause a yellow flag or incidents. Failure to do so will result in a grid penalty for future events. 4.6, retiring from the race. Again, another big one that we do see in the URC. Usually we see it happening in the pit lane. Intentional retirements on track. This means pulling over on the side of the track or just rage retiring from the race because you've either been A, you've been taken out, B, your wheel is disconnected, or C, you've simply lost passion for the race and just decided to go off and watch some TV or something because you can't be arsed. Doing this on track is disallowed. You must enter the pit lane to retire the car from the race, or else they will face a qualifying ban for the next event. Drivers who crash on track or retire must provide evidence to URC stewards at request to not face this penalty provided good reasoning. Causing yellow flags in qualifying. Now this wouldn't have been introduced in the 2025 cars, obviously, but with the new 2026 regulations, yellow flags in qualifying cause issues in terms of the overtake boost being disabled. So a message to all drivers: you must do your best to not cause yellow flags during a session. It could really ruin someone's qualifying lap, or if it happens during the race, it could really impact as well the yellow flags. But it's mostly qualifying is the big issue, as stated here in the subsection 4.7. Whilst you're getting out of the way, drivers must still do safely, but without excessively slowing. Those who have excessively slowed to cause a yellow that impedes someone's lap may be called by the stewards to provide evidence that this was not malicious. Penalties will be judged on a case-by-case basis. Internet connection. Bluefoot. He's an example of internet connection, but he blames it on EA. Driver internet connection is another big thing. Again, it's been in the league for quite a long time. It's been in many past rule books that I've had in place. Drivers are expected to have a stable internet connection when joining a URC race. Whilst driving on track, repeated reports of lagging around may result in a temporary removal from your seat until your internet allows a better racing experience for all. We know internet connection. If you're at home with your family, we know it's not. You can't control it. We know you might be living in a poorly covered area in terms of service. So look, we know whilst you can't do much about it, there's not much we can do about it either. So it just has to come to a mutual ground. As a side note though, screen freezes look like internet connection issues and may be considered under this regulation as a reason to temporarily remove a driver from this seat. But before any removes happen, due to internet connection, there will be conversations and stuff like held with the driver, just so that they have an understanding of why they were being removed from their seat temporarily. Because we don't want to say your internet is bad, you're removed. It has to be a more constructive conversation with them so that they understand that we want them still racing, but because of these issues, we can't have them destroying the racing experience. And then moving on to safety cars, Leo's favorite safety cars is the Aston Martin. Leo.
Pretty much the rest of this from here, because this is all the actual juicy stuff in these regulations. So safety car deployment is always handled by the game. We don't have any control on when a safety car or a virtual safety car is deployed by the game. Typically this is because of multiple incidents on track, or someone's binned it into the wall. Even just if someone's binned it into the wall, there's debris on the track. Safety cars and VSCs may be deployed. Drivers are always expected to adhere to the delta, but initially you must be safe in how you're slowing down when it is deployed, because if you slam on the brakes, let's say you're on the Camel Straight in Spa, you slam on the brakes to get under your delta, you're going to cause an incident behind, and that's just dangerous, and could even upgrade the safety car if it's just a virtual. Once your delta is under control, you must not exceed your delta by more than 0.5 of a second at any point under the safety car. So if you go minus 0.5, we may look into why you're that far under your delta. In terms of going over your delta, again, we will not have you excessively opening that gap, and that'll be discussed in a moment. With pit stops on the safety car, obviously in F1 the pit lane is open as normal under a safety car. Drivers are expected to remain green on their delta before reaching the pit lane commit line, where the speed is no longer controlled and you may attack the pit lane as normal. Between the safety car, between the pit commit and pit exit lines, the safety car delta is inactive and therefore you may push as normal. For those not in the pit lane, you must adhere to the delta regardless of those ahead exiting the pit lane. Drivers who exceed the minimum delta time to maintain their position will be granted a 10-second time penalty post-race regardless. We may request you to provide footage if we believe that you have done that with your delta to maintain a position. So this is where, let's say you've pitted, someone else got it under the safety car, you're wanting to beat them out of the pit lane. You're still required to adhere to that delta, rather than, let's say, pushing to a second and a half under your delta and then slamming on the brakes to make that all back. That's already unsafe as it is with the slamming on your brakes, and it is against the rules because you're going too fast under your safety car. 5.3 will cover the actual conduct in the safety car queue, and this does also apply to 5.4 as well. even when it's the leader under control. While on the line, you may weave to keep your tyres in a good temperature window, but drivers can't perform the following actions that are going to be mentioned at punishment of up to and including a 20-second penalty. So the first thing is excessively braking and accelerating. So this is where you're going stop-start to try and get a bit more temperature in your tyres, maybe trying to do some burnouts. It's dangerous. You know, everyone's expected to be driving about the same speed at any given point, and slamming on the brakes and then slamming on the throttle causes massive concertina effects, and that's when you get massive incidents. The 10 car length gap is a real life requirement, and I believe somewhat enforced in the game as well, with it saying you're falling too far back. This is to prevent, and this is included with creating a gap in the pack to advantage someone else. Excessively slowing under the safety car so that someone else can maybe make a pit stop, or even on the restart, someone can run away, maybe you're their teammate. You let the leader run off while you hold the pack up by a couple of seconds. You're not allowed to draw alongside other drivers and remain there. So if the field slows down quite quickly and you pull alongside, that's not a problem. If you're remaining alongside, then that's where issues occur. And overtaking is the same thing. You're not allowed to overtake under a safety car. We understand that the game does have some bugs that allow you to, but you must cede that position at the soonest opportunity, otherwise you will face a penalty. In terms of safety car restarts, the leader is considered to get control of the field to the start-finish line, which is the restart point. The leader is responsible for any incidents that may occur because they've done multiple restarts by speeding up and slowing down. Driving too slowly, which we typically say 80 kilometers an hour is about the slowest on a traditional circuit, or 60 kilometers an hour where the final corner might be a little bit too tight for you to be carrying too much speed on a restart. And then obviously when the game says safety car is in this lap, just slamming on the brakes down to whatever speed, you should gradually slow down to your control pace and then maintain that pace. Drivers are not allowed to abuse, Rhea and Spencer, the fact that the safety car force slows you down if you get too close before it is in the pit lane, and therefore causes multiple restarts because the game has forced you to stop pretty much. You have to control the restart properly or face repercussions for any and all incidents caused behind and violation of this regulation. Drivers within the pack are responsible for not causing incidents with the same requirements as 5.3 and anything else stated in this section. Drivers may not pull alongside others during the safety car restart. So this moves us on to the juice, though, of section 6, which is in regards to everything that used to be exploited in the regulations. So the first part of this is your right to space. Space should be given at all opportunities to both drivers engaging in the fight. It is up to the driver behind to earn the right to space given, and while they are conducting the overtake, they must leave space at all times for the battle. Leaving space is defined as allowing another driver room within the track limits and provided a raceable surface exists for any wheels to exceed the track limits and to maintain a battle. Drivers are not allowed to force one another off track to complete moves and must instead give racing room for battling. If we give the example of Madrid, out of the long banked right-hander, you have a left-hander which is quite tricky. You can go wheel to wheel through there, and there is a bit of off-track surface that you can go over. The driver on the outside must be allowed to keep two wheels within the track limit, but they may use that off-track space, and the attacking driver may force them out to that level of space, provided it's not off-track. Our definition of significantly alongside is going to be front tyre to defender's side pod, alongside the car at a reasonable point for the apex, which we call the point the defending driver would normally be turning into the corner. If the defending driver is turning in early, that may be judged differently. The driver attacking is responsible for leaving space while they conduct the overtake, and the driver defending is required to leave space during the attack. Squeezing is fine. Attacking drivers may be awarded a penalty if their car is not going to complete the corner in a way that leaves space for the defending driver upon the exit, and maybe causes contact as well. The stewards have discretion to review footage and decide whether or not space would have been left on the exit by their opinion in the situation. And that'll be reviewed by all stewards, and a collective result would be given. Enforcing a driver off the track. Sometimes being forced off the track happens. You know, if it's a good battle and per the regulations it might have been a racing incident, the driver will be reviewed for forcing off the track and penalties will be assigned properly. In the case a driver is forced off track and given a warning or a penalty, provided they would have remained on track without contact, they are eligible for the warning to be removed per section 2.2. And drivers that are forced off track are required to rejoin safely per 4.2, which is how to rejoin the track safely, and are allowed to submit a report regarding their being forced off track. We've talked a lot about what the driver attacking can do, but the defender just as much has responsibilities themselves. So under defense, the defending driver is allowed to make 2 moves for their defense, provided that the conditions are fine to do it. They can do the first move to defend their line into the corner, which must happen before the attacking driver is committed to a line and at least 100 meters before the braking zone to allow for reaction time to both lift and coast and braking actions. And then they're allowed a second move to return to their racing line should they not be blocking or impeding the attacking driver. Pit lane fakes, as under previous rules, will be classified as a defensive maneuver and therefore is classified as the defending your line. Making more than these allowed moves in a straight line would be considered blocking and have a base of a 5-second penalty, with harsh penalties being handed out for repeated instances or incidents being caused because of moving too late or moving too much on the straight. Dive bombing is classified when a driver makes an aggressive overtaking move from a large distance back while late braking. We do allow dive bombs to be performed, provided the maneuver is compliant with regulation 6.1 and the attacking driver is fully under control at the point of the overtake. A dive bomb will not be allowed and the attacking driver will be deemed at fault if contact is made or either driver leaves the racing surface during the performance of a dive bomb. This is to make sure that, yes, some tracks are very hard to follow close, so you may be able to go a little bit later on the brakes than the driver ahead, but you might not be close enough for a traditional move. But you've got to be certain that you are keeping both of you on the track and not making contact. Defenders also have responsibilities in it as well, but any incident that is a defending driver in any incident is responsible for being predictable in their actions and not doing anything that causes an unwelcome outcome. Examples of what you may do that makes an incident their fault is not leaving space when the attack has the right to it, moving too late or under braking, brake checking that causes a collision, weaving in the straight, or excessively squeezing a driver that is attacking you. For example, pretty much putting them in a wall in the conducting of a defense. And that concludes everything regarding attacking and overtaking generally. It covers pretty much everything on track barring one part. But Section 7 is the most serious part of this and what will be upheld pretty much regardless of the circumstances surrounding it. Unsportsmanlike conduct is defined as actions a driver takes against another driver which are meant to harm them or their experience within the league. Drivers are responsible for their conduct both on track and in discord. Unsportsmanlike conduct includes abuse, retaliation, and intentional wrecking. Abuse is something that we don't tolerate, and we never have, never will tolerate within URC. Even if it's regarding their driving, it's unacceptable. If you have an issue with someone's driving, you open an instant report. And if we are told that someone is having misconduct, whether it be in DMs, whether it be in other servers, or whether it be in the URC Discord, punishments will be allocated to you without further question or ability to appeal. We don't condone abuse in any form, and extreme cases of abuse will result in an immediate termination of your right to participate in URC in any manner, and you will be banned from the Discord. And as a further note, hate speech, whether that be slurs, whether that be against any sort of thing, whether it be against religion, gender, sexuality, anything like that, it's classified as a form of abuse and will be taken seriously. You may get penalties for your on-track. You may get on-track penalties for your conduct in Discord, such as qualifying bans, race bans, removal from seats, season bans, that sort of thing. Section 7.3 covers intentional wrecking. Drivers found to intentionally wreck another driver on circuit for any reason will be granted at minimum a 3-race ban and 10 penalty points, and we may extend that far beyond by our discretion, because dirty drivers are dirty drivers. And the final part of our regulations is about covering all conduct outside of URC. Gross misconduct outside of URC that affects people's lives, if proven to be true to URC administration, will result in an immediate ban from URC. Our members are our priority, and severe issues raised to us will lead us to defend our members rather than allowing you to race here. We want to create a safe community for everyone to have fun, and we don't want people to have to worry about issues occurring against them because of one person in the league. We don't tolerate anything extreme to be brought into our Discord, and we won't give you the opportunity to fight against it. You'll be gone as soon as we're made aware of it. But that is the rulebook. I don't see any further questions. Shamrock, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I think this rule book, it's long. I think from what I can, what I would expect the drivers to be saying about this rule book is that it's long, it's extensive, they'll probably find it difficult to read the entire thing, but I think it needs to be extensive, it needs to be clear, it needs to be clear and concise, and from a driver's point of perspective in the league, you need to understand where we're coming from when we look at your incidents, that we're not just making up these verdicts from our minds, we're not just putting whatever 2 and 2 together because we believe it makes sense. Your verdict on your incident will come from this rule book every single time. If you engaged in harassment or bullying of someone in the league, your penalty, your punishment will come from this rule book. This rule book is essentially our Bible going forward, and it's the main point of reference for us to not only deal with the racing side but also the league side. URC has 91 people in it, taking away the 6 AI bots that we have. That's still about 85 people present in the league, and they all have lives. They all do their own thing. They all have their own personalities. Anyone found to be abusing people for their personalities or what they have going on outside the league, you're not going to last much long. You're not going to last here in this league because, as Leo said, there's no place for it. There's simply no place for it. I've said this for seasons. It's a nice little quote I like to stick by. In the URC, we race united as one community. And the moment someone kind of goes against that or decides to hurt someone in this community, they'll be removed. It's that simple.
Thank you, Shamrock. The last thing from me. Firstly, if I get too many complaints about this rulebook being too long, I will make it into an audiobook so that people can listen on their walks to work, on their walks to school, anything like that. Make it a bit easier for people to get through the rulebook. It's available in PDF form already, as well as just plain text form in Discord. That will remain for the rest of time, and maybe at some point I'll translate it to something else, because this Discord channel is hard to scroll through already as it is. But this is all mainly in response to how many complaints we had about the old system. The old rules had a lot of flaws in them. It was a lot of contention from other people regarding how things were enforced, regarding reasoning behind an incident, regarding the little loopholes that could be found in it, because we can be honest about that, there wasn't much in terms of what we could say back, because it was a tiny example of what happened and then the punishment that comes with it. This rulebook is designed for everyone to be able to go and point at it. This is the exact reason why you are being given this penalty for this incident, rather than being, this is the regulation you broke, that's your penalty, deal with it. There's flexibility in there for a reason. It's to keep everything fair for everyone, and we'll be on top of whether fairness is an issue the entire time. You know, if someone's getting a penalty, let's say a 20-second penalty for one incident, and someone else doing the exact same thing gets a 5-second penalty, we'll be able to monitor that and see that those issues exist and address them immediately. And that wouldn't be a rulebook change, that would be a stewarding change. But if there's an exploit, we allow for it once, but never again. It will be resolved in the week leading up to the next race. But I think that's absolutely everything, Faulkner. If you've even seen this, I don't think you ever will. But thank you for your short reign as the head steward in URC. I'm going to make sure we don't get any more complaints in the future, hopefully, with this rulebook. He did resign. We didn't force him out. He just said he had his reasons. We're not going to disclose them. But thank you for coming along to this review of the rulebook. For anyone who came along, even if you just watched a bit, the VOD will permanently be available on YouTube for you to watch back, read through. Myself, I'll be available pretty much whenever you ping me regarding anything you think could be changed in the rules. I'll be lurking through tickets, and the stewarding team, I'm sure, will be doing a great job over the next few rounds. And hell, if anything goes wrong, we have the opportunity to fix it. That's the whole point of a rulebook. It's never going to be perfect, but we sure as hell can do our best to stop the rulebook from being violated wherever possible. Because at the end of the day, yes, we're all here for fun, but to have fun, there does still need to be rules in place. And even though this is extensive, it's there to allow for everyone to have fun, even our stewards who only do it to do stewarding. But thank you all for coming along. We will be with you in a week's time. We'll be going to Silverstone, I believe, just moving forward in the calendar.
Silverstone,
yeah. Pretty much everything is plus 1 week to where the calendar was going to be, just simply by fact of this week it's too hot for people. I hope everyone in the league has been keeping themselves safe during their respective heat waves. I know that the British one has migrated over to Europe coming over the next few days, so drink plenty of water, keep yourself safe, keep yourself cool, and we will see you in a week's time for hopefully a beautiful British sprint race.